Hello, hello. Welcome to Workspace Spark. Another great time we're going to have with one of our experts. So, Kevin L. Matthews the second, thank you so much for being with us today. So, you have been with us before. We had great reviews of your last call, so we wanted to bring you back. But man, how life has changed since the last time you were since the last time you were interviewed with us. The job market definitely a little bit different. So we're going to dive into that. But first, for the people who have not heard from you before on our expert interviews, can you tell everyone about yourself?
Sure. My name is Kevin Matthews II. I'm the founder and CEO of Building Bread and also a best-selling author. Primarily, I help to make investing simple and help people to find the right job and get paid more.
Awesome. Awesome. And so our subscribers, our career professionals, always looking in the market, trying to figure out what the different changes are. There's always some trends and things going on. So thank you so much for being here with us.
Thank you for having me.
All right. So, is it still a good market for job seekers? I know a few years ago, it was like, oh my gosh, this is the market for job seekers. Everything's out there. But is it still a good market?
So the numbers say yes, it is still a good market. Right now, it is 1.7 jobs for every one unemployed person. Now, today, 2023, and I would say really the first 5 to 6 months of the year, this is still a good opportunity. However, that market is shrinking. In August of 2022, it was 2 jobs to every one person, and now it's 1.7. So for a little while longer, it is still a good time to negotiate for a higher salary or even look for a new position.
Ah, great. Thank you for that data. Never even thought about how it shifted. That's not even that far apart. You said
Yeah,
that's not even
yeah.
that far apart.
hmm
Right. So what has changed about the job search process? So again, August now has shifted to where we are now.
hmm
What do you think has changed about the job search process?
Yeah, so the job searching process is almost totally digital now. And I think, especially when I was applying for jobs and everything, especially back in the pandemic as well, I went to grad school. I was like, oh, it's 2020. I'm about to graduate. I'm going to walk right out of here and go right to the best job ever. Obviously, that did not occur. Like, had no idea. Nobody really knew that I was walking into
No one knew.
the worst market in like 20 years. But what I found throughout that process was that it sometimes it's not about you. A lot of times it's all digital in that your main opponent, I'm thinking of whether it's basketball game or football game, my main opponent is not the HR person, it's not the hiring manager, it's actually what is called the applicant tracking system. There is a robot that will determine within a few minutes whether or not whether or not your resume is even going to be seen to an actual person. So figuring out how do you get past that system and what are the things that you need to do on your resume to even get your foot in the door.
Wow. So can we talk a little bit about that robot person, that kind of what is that?
Yeah, so almost every company has what's called an ATS, as the applicant tracking system. And what it does is essentially scan your resume and see whether or not it fits with the keywords of the position. So that means that every single time you apply, the words that you have in your resume have to match some of the key terms and words that may be in the job description. They will give you a score, whether it's 50% or 10% or whatever it is, and almost immediately either deny you or pass you on to the next round. And I found this out again the hard way. I applied in 2020 to over 100 jobs and only got interviewed about 4 to 5 times. That was it. And one time that absolutely shocked me as I started to figure out this process was that I applied and I applied on the weekend. So it was a Saturday. I knew a real person wasn't gonna see their resume. I was like,
Right.
look, let me just go and apply. In less than 5 minutes, I got a rejection. I'm like, hold on now.
Oh,
Hold
that
on.
has to be a robot, right?
Exactly. I'm like, I just applied 5 minutes ago. How could you? What happened here? So that started me on my process to figure out like what is actually going on and how can I like get around this process and get to the place I need to get to.
Wow, that explains a lot. So I've heard that before, but I didn't realize about the keywords. So super important. So I hope that you all are taking notes. Um, now, we have people, again, working professionals, as a lot of our subscribers that listen to our expert interviews. A lot of times we get questions about transitioning into a new field. So,
Mhm.
you know, you've been doing something for a while and now it's time to transition into a new field. What are some ways that people can transition?
Yeah, so for background, I've been a seventh grade math teacher. I've been a full-time financial advisor. I moved into government. I moved into tech. So transitions are possible, even when it doesn't feel like it. The key thing is, depending on where you are and what you're trying to transition to, you have to be able to pull out those key stories and key moments that are going to absolutely translate. And sometimes it's going to be communication. So, for example, I was a teacher, and they said, "Well, why do you want to be a financial advisor? How in the world are you going to do that?" Well, my thing was, look, I dealt with math. I was able to explain these high level, complicated investing topics, and I can do that for clients one to one. I was like, oh, translatable skill, right? So whether it's grading papers, probably wasn't the best translatable skill, probably not going to be the thing I'm going to put on my resume, but the
Right.
communication pieces is what I was going to take over. When I went from finance to tech, I had to say, look, still took the high level concepts, did all the math stuff, but the main thing is I had to use technology to get people in the door. I had to use technology and software to figure out how much somebody should invest and where they wanted to go in their financial plans. So again, it's always sitting down and say, what is my story here? What are the things have I accomplished? And maybe of the 10 things, you take the top 5 that are going to translate into that role and make sure they are tailored to the specific job or industry that you're looking to go to.
Awesome. Yes, transferable skill. I was a full-time entrepreneur for years and went back into the workplace.
Mhm.
And as an entrepreneur, project management, right? Like
Absolutely.
a lot of
Yeah.
things. And it took a coach to really help me realize that transferable skill. And I was able to
Mhm.
get that thing. Yeah. So
Yeah, and same for me. And that was the thing that really got me through 2020 was that I was full-time entrepreneur. So the one thing I knew was going to work at that point in time. And they were like, I was looking for a marketing role, and I was like, wait a minute. As a business owner, I send thousands of emails. Like I know how to communicate. I've
our
done on my
marketing,
own.
you are
Yeah,
the marketing department.
exactly. It was like I've literally sent all these emails. I had to learn how to do Facebook advertising for my own business. Guess what? Transferable skill, right? I had to sit back and say, of all the things I do, what are the things that are definitely going to translate for that role? And even as an entrepreneur, I would say it's actually the best place to get any experience you need because you can just go out there and do it, practice it, get good at it, and then have those results to put in front of an employer whenever you decide to.
Awesome. Yes, transferable skills. I think it's important. And I think that anything that you're doing, like there's some kind of connection that you can bridge that gap. It's just finding what that connection is. Now, how can one increase their chances of getting interviewed? So, right, we have technology, we have applications everywhere on all these sites, and now we're talking about this robot who's giving rejection messages immediately. How can you increase your chances, though, of getting that interview?
Yes. So there are two things that can really get you past the robot more times than not. So remember, like I said, 2020, I applied to 100 jobs to get like 5 interviews. And then once I started to learn this process, I applied to like 30 and got about 10 interviews. So 30% compared to just 5%. And that's a significant jump. I could only apply to a few jobs and get interviewed, 1 out of 5 times or 3 out of 10 times. So there are the two things you can do. Number one, there's a website called JobScan, and what that will do is you take your resume and you take the job application or the description rather, you put it in there, and it will give you a score of how good your resume is compared to that system, and will highlight the words that you need to put in your resume and things that you may want to consider taking out. And what I did is every time I applied, I said, look, I need to get this between 80 and 90%. I would keep changing the words, keep changing the resume until I got it right. That was one of the number one things that I did. The second thing, in JobScan, I think you get like 5 scans a month or something for free. So that's something you can use for free. The second thing is I had what was called a core competency section on my resume. And I did a tweet thread about this a while back. But essentially, you can put all of the skills and some of those keywords in that section so that it will show up in the applicant tracking system. The key thing is your resume is not for a person. You have to remember that. Sometimes we make all this nice formatting and all these like beautiful sentences and all that kind of stuff. Obviously, you want to have things that make sense, but you got to get past the robot first. I'm making the resume to get past the robot, and I can explain anything to a person once I get there. So inside that core competency section, they say you need to know Salesforce. I'm just gonna put the word Salesforce in the bottom, right?
Right.
I'm competent in Salesforce, leadership, Adobe Marketplace or Photoshop, whatever it is, and just have a list of all the things that you are competent in. That is going to help to boost your ranking with the robot. And that's what's going to get you in front of a person. And they're going to look at all the nice bullet points. They're not going to pay attention to the core competency section, but the robots do. And that's how you get into the interview.
Wow, job scan is gold. That is a
Yes.
gold mine tip, everyone. Please write that down.